Hey folks, this is Mark Devine. Welcome back to the Unbeatable Mind podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're here in studio in Carlsbad, California at SealFit and Unbeatable headquarters. And my guest today is John Kim. Super excited to talk to John, the angry therapist and author of I Used to Be a Miserable Fuck.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk to you about that, John. Anyways, before we go into a little bit more detail with John and we kind of get into the thick of things, my book, Staring Down the Wolf, is due out in March. So I assume that's going to be a little bit in the future from when this podcast gets launched. And we'd love to have you support it by going to the pre-launch page at staringdownthewolf.com and check out some of the really cool offers for basically getting the book, either individual signed copy or all the way up to like 100 copies signed, and get some cool pre-offers that won't be available after this, essentially. And, you know, it helps us authors to really support a book at launch because you want to get as many people buying the book and talking about the book. And you might even get on a bestseller list, which is actually the real game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyways, staringdownthewolf.com. And I'm pretty transparent as to why I want you to go there, I guess. But I appreciate your support. Hoo-yah. John, man, it's super cool to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Trip down from LA.
Yeah, absolutely.
By train today.
Yes, I've never taken the train before, and what a way to go.
It's cool, isn't it?
The traffic has gotten so bad in the city.
I can't stand getting on the I-5.
Oh,
I mean, I have everything set up so I can just go from on the 101, you know, here and there.
Yeah.
And anytime I have to get on the I-5, I literally have to like do my mental prep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's gotten so bad where if you don't live in your own kind of bubble and have your own tribe, LA is just it's the traffic and the increase in price. It's people are making an exodus, I think, from New York and all coming here because they want kale in the backyard.
Why would they want to come here?
I think they went there in their 20s and it was fun and exciting when you're 20 to live like sardines and the excitement of the city, and now that they're in their 30s, they're like, you know, fuck this, I'm coming to LA. And so we're having all these people come to LA. I live in Silver Lake.
I guess if you come from New York, LA probably seems awesome.
Yes, because you're thinking about the beach and the sun.
Right,
you're
coming
from
the
weather.
Cold, right.
But
it's all spread out. So
it's
you don't
all
have
spread
this
out.
Compact, you know, high.
And then they come here and they realize that it's now almost as expensive as New York, and it has its own
New York
struggles.
and California, I think, are the most expensive states, aren't they?
It's getting really bad. Anyway.
Yeah, the
so
sunshine tax.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, cool. I appreciate being here. Now, you go by the term the angry therapist.
Yes. Yes.
What's up with that? And the title of your book is I Used to Be a Miserable Fuck.
Yeah.
And so there's two things right there that kind of anchor you in an interesting way. So what's all that about?
Yeah. The angry therapist started about 10 years ago after I went through a divorce. And
that can make anybody pretty angry, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I was angry. I was miserable. I was unhappy. And I had to start my life all over, and so I created a blog on Tumblr. Tumblr was kind of big at the time.
I remember that.
And it was just for me. It wasn't. I didn't think anyone would read it, and I thought it was funny that a therapist is angry. And what I didn't know that I was doing was I was humanizing myself because I pulled the curtain back. I started to talk about my feelings, what I was going through. I discovered CrossFit. I discovered motorcycles. I got some tattoos, and I went on this like hero's journey.
Like a little bit of a midlife crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, a midlife crisis, I think, that has stigma around it, and people think that is like buying a Corvette.
I think the hero's journey is a much better way to look at that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, when they have a breakdown and then they retreat, they kind of shy away from the hero's journey part of it.
Sure.
Where you have to go face the dragon.
Absolutely.
And learn some skills and then slay that.
Yes, and I think the difference between a midlife crisis and a hero's journey is with the midlife crisis, you're running away from yourself.
Right.
A hero's journey where you're slaying dragons and returning to the village changed. You actually have to run toward yourself.
Right.
And so things like CrossFit and things like getting on a motorcycle and learning to ride and all of this was me running toward myself, not running away.
And how old are you when this all started?
Man, I was about 35.
Okay.
Mid-30s.
Yeah.
Becoming a therapist, created this blog. And I think people thought it was kind of interesting that there was a therapist who was also saying that he was broken. You know, because in our world, as a therapist, you present yourself in a way where people don't know who you are. You know, you're kind of a cardboard cutout. You're neutral.
I have a lot of experience with therapy, and listeners know this because I married one.
Oh, you did? I didn't
when
know
I
that.
was 26.
Nice.
And no, when I was 31 in 1996. And she had far from an idyllic childhood, and she'd be the first to admit it. And I've since come to recognize that actually a lot of people drawn to therapy
Yes.
are people who didn't. And that's what makes them really good at what they do.
Right.
Because they understand it firsthand.
I think people who have the most trauma and have gone through the most stuff in their stories end up being the most powerful catalyst.
I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fascinating. So before we dig into the kind of what was your childhood like? Like, what was the trauma and the story that built your initial version of yourself?
I came to America when I was 3, and
From
Korea.
From Korea.
Yeah, and parents worked all the time, so I tell people I was kind of raised by pulp culture, and I was really bad at school. So in order to fit in, I had to have some kind of ability. So for me, it was the 80s and breakdancing. And once I learned to spin on my head, I was like, oh, now girls like me. Now I can hang with the older guys. And so I kind of fell in love.
Koreans love breakdancing for some reason.
Yeah, I was doing it when it was the first time. Yeah, now it's like crazy. But I genuinely loved it, and that's when I first discovered flow states. That's when I realized that you could put yourself in a state where you could lose track of time. Right. Then I started playing with BMX bikes and skateboarding and stuff like that. I was never an athlete, but I was athletic. Mm-hmm. And I got obsessed with doing things that made me feel alive. Mm-hmm. But parents were never home, and so
what did they do? And what
they came here with zero money, and so my mom worked at like a 7-Eleven, but it was called a stop and go at the time, and this was in Georgia, and she got robbed many times, and she was working the 17-hour days, not speaking English and all that. And then my dad worked at a telephone company. GTE, and just running manual labor, running phone cables, and he built that into his own little business. And so they were always gone working, and so my brother and I had no supervision. So we just went out and played. And I think my parents just bought us things because they thought that's what it looked like to be American. And so, we were the house where you would go into the cupboards and it would be like a liquor store, Twinkies and all the bad foods. Right. And so all the kids came over for that, and we had cable boxes and things like the Playboy Channel and stuff that it was like a Disneyland for 12-year-olds. So but the thing about parents not being home, and this I learned later when I was working in a nonprofit, is I didn't get a lot of emotional milk. I didn't get a lot of dad taking me to football games and building certainty in me.
You were raised by the pack.
I was raised by the pack. Absentee. And so I feel like that wired me to chase shiny things. Right. So by the time I was married, I was in Hollywood pursuing a screenwriting career.
Interesting.
And I was obsessed with this shiny thing, which was the House in the Hills.
You obviously went to college, so high school and college.
I went to
I went
to college.
To navigate all that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't go to like an Ivy League school. Right. People think because you're an author or a therapist that you have done really well in school. You're very academic, and that was not the case for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did
you have a lot of variety of friends, like cultural variety, or were you kind of with the Korean group?
If I grew up today, I would. I grew up in the 80s where Asian people were made fun of, and it wasn't cool. Remember it was just a little bit after like Jerry Lewis was taping his eyes back, and in the 80s there were characters like Long Duck Dong in John Hughes movies and stuff, and so I just got really lucky. I was kind of, it seemed like with the cool kids in the jocks and stuff, they only kind of let in one token Asian, and I kind of slipped in, so I didn't get bullied or picked on. But now Asian people are cool, and they're a lot more accepted. They're in media more, and I think it's a really exciting time, not only for Asians but all minorities and cultures.
Yeah, I agree with that. Interesting. So whatever happened to that first career, the screenwriter or the producer?
I had a knack for it because I was able to get representation as a writer. I sold a screenplay, but it was too feast or famine. And I started to write for the wrong reasons. So instead of writing because I was passionate and I was interested in the craft, I wanted to write because I thought it was my ticket out of mediocrity and into being quote unquote successful. So, buying the things, having the house and the fancy cars and all that. And because that didn't come, I didn't allow myself to be happy. So I would just go into a Starbucks every day for 12 hours and like death of a salesman, just write and be miserable. And I wouldn't have any friends. I had no form of fitness or training. I had no sense of self. I was a complete boy, a man-child, and I think that contributed to the expiration of my marriage. You know,
your marriage had an expiration date.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
But you know,
because you were just not there for her, or was it, you know, mutual?
I think part of it was just not being aware. Part of it was being a child. Part of it was because I didn't have a strong father figure who taught me how to be a man and what a man looks like. Because I grew up skateboarding and trying to be cool, I didn't have a lot of tools in relationships. You know, I had a lot of ego. I talk about in this book to respond instead of react. So I was very reactive, and I think that's one of the greatest separations between a boy and a man. Boys react, and I think men respond. So up until 35, I was a walking reaction.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then after the divorce, and then going through my journey, I realized that the power is in the response, not the reaction. You know. So
the divorce obviously was traumatic enough to cause you to literally do an all stop and go on this hero's journey to find the real John King. It was my
call to action.
Right. It was your call to action.
Shattered my heart. But it was also the best thing that's ever happened to me in the sense that if it wasn't for that inciting incident, I don't know what I'd be doing. I mean, I wouldn't be helping people. I wouldn't be a therapist. I'd probably be an addict. I don't know what I would be doing. You know? Interesting. So it kind of saved me.
That was your savior. Yeah, that was your.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what word you would use for an inciting incident or catalyst, I guess. Catalyst for transformation. So is that when you started getting into therapy yourself?
Yes, I got into therapy myself. I got obsessed with this idea of looking inward. The universe threw me into a nonprofit where I started working with addicted teens, and I realized we lived in a fatherless nation, meaning
that's a real crisis, isn't it?
Yeah, so dad is either not home physically or he's not home emotionally. And so because of that, I saw the byproduct of these teens and girls standing too close, no boundaries, and boys either wanting to be me or fight me. And and they're all addicted to something. And a huge contributor to that was that there was this absent positive male role model, and so they found it in gangs or you know other things, and that led them down to destruction and using. So as I was doing that, I was also in treatment, meaning we were working in residential. So I was also discovering connection to my body through functional fitness. I used to be the guy that would just go to the gym and do some curls, and I would look like a pigeon because I never squatted, and you know, and it was just for show. And then when I found like a CrossFit and functional fitness, I was like, oh, this is what it's like.
This is what it's about.
Yeah, it put me on my back, and I got addicted to getting to that white zone where you feel like you're dying, and then seeing if you could stretch that, and if you could stretch that. So there was a lot of growth there physically, and then emotionally, just working on yourself, looking inward for the first time.
And so, what point did you consider shifting focus and becoming a therapist yourself?
As the divorce was happening, as my marriage was falling apart, I realized that I wasn't happy, and the screenwriting wasn't going to be it. And I was talking to my own therapist, and he said, what do you want to do if you can't make movies or pursue that? And I said, if I can't move people by the masses, I want to do it one at a time. I want to do what you're doing. I've always loved psychology. And he says, well, go do it. And I thought you needed to be a PhD. I thought you needed, really good grades. He's like, you just need a master's, which takes 2 years. And then at 35, back to school. What he didn't tell me is that you also need 3,000 hours.
3,000 long hours.
That took me like 6 years. I mean, that was brutal, and it's lonely.
Right.
So after I came out of that, I had a really like.
Where'd you go to school, by the way?
I went to school, got my bachelor's at Cal State Northridge.
But the master's for the
in Encino in a private school, psychology. Okay. And when I was done with that, and I was doing the hours, because it's so bad as far as like the pay.
It's a tough road.
Yeah, and by the time you're getting your hours and swimming toward 3,000, you start to lose the passion of why you started this in the first place, right? And a lot of people who are doing this, they're mothers, they're people that are.
And you can't practice and take money until you get that 3,000.
Yeah,
hours.
And you don't get paid for it.
Right.
I don't know how people are doing it. So I was kind of thinking there's got to be a better way to help people.
It's an unbelievably high standard, actually.
It's too high.
It's too high, I agree.
The system
and in the life coaching world, you could just get certified
yes.
literally for a few weeks
right.
and then go out and basically a lot of life coaches are kind of like presenting the similar tools.
Yes. So that's what's happening right now. So what I did was I created this online school called Journey Coaching. It's JRNI, and I decided to create a new way to help people. And I know life coaching has a lot of stigma, and it's you could become a life coach over the week.
There's just over 500 of them out there. We recently researched that. 500 life coaching certifications.
Oh, is there really?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, and there's no board with that. So, you got to be careful. But our training thing is legit, and it's 20 weeks, and it's intensive. And so I started that, and so that gave me a sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I started to write my ass off. I started blogging like I've never done it before.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, now you had something to write for.
Yes. So
instead of just writing a screenplay.
When you're writing a screenplay, I was doing it for, in a way, I was doing it for myself, in kind of an egotistic way, for money. And then when I started blogging, I was doing it for other people.
Right.
Meaning taking their questions and doing what I can.
Is your blog The Angry Therapist?
Yeah. Yep.
What? And so what point did you come up with that? Like, was it just because you were
I thought it was funny
pissed off?
Yeah. I thought it was funny that a therapist was angry. But I think it was also kind of subconsciously me humanizing myself.
Yes.
Yeah,
I get that.
That it's okay to be angry.
Right.
It's okay to have feelings and be a therapist. You don't have to just be neutral.
Yeah.
It's okay to show yourself. So,
and you know what? To be honest, like, there is a lot of people like who go to therapists, and the therapists say, you know what? That anger is just, it's just a fleeting thing.
Yeah.
Or, sit with the anger, right? Really feel it.
Right.
And you're like, well, that's not helping me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fucking pissed off.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And also pretending that they don't have some of these same issues.
Well, because then you don't really connect to that
Because then, you can't connect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay to be angry. Fuck it,
Yeah. And
it's a powerful emotion, isn't it, actually?
It could be great. I mean, as long as
you could use it for good purposes.
Exactly. I mean, you could also use anger, and people do in fitness, in competitions, in sports. I mean, that, I think
there's a lot of angry Navy SEAls. You stoke that anger going into combat.
Absolutely, but as long as you
just got to control it.
You have to control it, right? I mean, once it turns into rage and becomes a weapon, and out of control, that's different.
That's right. That's reactive.
That's reactive, right? But using anger that's controlled can be a response.
Right. So would you say the angry therapist has like a core philosophy?
I think I have many, but I think one of them is that your story is gold, that there's power in your story. So one of the things that I've learned in treating thousands over the last decade is most people want to rip out chapters. And, we're talking about trauma earlier. Because of what happened, and because no child enters adulthood unscarred, whether it's, sexual assault or, broken hearts or divorce or people who have left or whatever.
Or even just childhood trauma.
Oh, tons,
I recently did something called the Hoffman process. You heard about that?
No.
It's all about early childhood trauma, which basically their premise is that you can't avoid it.
No, you
even
can't.
in idyllic families.
You can't. Well, because it's the world that we live in.
Yeah, that child, that undifferentiated child, even the first 36 months, there is no separation between me and my mom or me and my parents.
Right.
And so if my parents are in the other room arguing, I'm wrong.
Yes,
I'm experiencing trauma.
You're, absolutely, and I think that
or any million of things like that.
Yeah, and a lot of people think trauma means something you experienced in Iraq or sexual trauma, but that's not true.
It's
I mean,
not true, no.
Someone could steal your skateboard and it could be traumatic. So it depends on the individual and the circumstances.
And one more point on that, because I do a lot of work with vets through our Courage Foundation. Yep. A lot of the vets with post-traumatic stress are finding that through therapy that their real issues actually preceded their military.
Before, yeah.
And this is the combat like layered on and exposed it.
It's almost like your story pre the military kind of positions you. And then that basically
becomes a triggering moment.
Becomes a trigger, yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting. And I think that's why a lot of times the same person that's been through this, a different person that's been through the same thing doesn't have the effects.
That's right.
Yeah. But going back to this idea of embracing your story, I think that our stories are powerful and that we need to actually accept, own, embrace, and share.
And in order to do that, you got to analyze them. You got to become self-aware.
You got to go on your journey.
Yeah, my first journey into story came through meditation. And I got into Zen training through a martial art. And I didn't have a therapist. Never was even a discussion in my family,
Right.
Upstate New York family. Still to this day, I'm the only one in my family that's ever been to therapy or even considered it. God bless them all. Makes for interesting holidays.
Yeah.
At any rate, but meditation is when you can still your mind long enough to have the experience of mindfulness.
Right.
Then you become self-reflective.
Yes, it
And
creates
then you
soil.
become
It creates the soil
self-aware.
for that.
Right. It creates
So wait,
soil.
how do you meditate? What's your process?
Today, my process is I've been training since 21 years old. And so the process I teach is slightly different than the process that I do, but there's still an element that happens when I meditate. So first, I begin this practice we call box breathing, and that's to calm my body down. This is the arousal part. Because if your body is agitated and out of control, then your brain is as well.
Sure.
And so then I turn that into concentration to radically reduce the quantity of my thinking and to get it laser focused on that one thing.
Right.
And then, so this is I call it the continuum, the unbeatable mind continuum. And then I go into the mindfulness aspect, which is where I'll connect with my witness, which is kind of my higher mind, and begin to watch the quality of my thoughts without judging, without anything. And that's where the pattern recognition comes in, which is almost like your own therapist.
Right. How long do you do that for?
My practice is a 20-minute practice.
Oh, okay.
Every morning.
So that whole thing is 20 minutes, and you do that every day?
And at the end of it, I do my visualization practice, which takes me, when you get really good at visualization, it's almost instantaneous. You have to conjure up the image, re-energize it, and then you can move on.
Yeah. I love that.
So
I love that visualization, because I think a lot of people mistake that with just like seeing something and then it's going to fall in your lap, or this law of attraction thing.
Right.
I love the idea that you have to drop into your body. I love the idea that you have to feel it, and that's more powerful.
You have to embody the whole process. You can't be just in the left hemisphere brain. And I think that's why a lot of people fail with meditations. They sit down and they're thinkitating.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting. Absolutely.
And
then they judge that.
Then they
judge they're like, I can't do this.
I can't do this.
And it doesn't work. It's stupid.
Right. It probably has some medical and health benefit because they're just slowing down enough to just sit. And so I think even if you just sit and think, it probably has some physical benefits.
Do you think that you can meditate without the kind of traditional, closing your eyes and sitting, cross-legged on the floor? Can you meditate while being active? Can you meditate?
The answer is we have to be clear about what we're talking about. And the term meditation has been conflated to any type of mental practice. And so I usually don't like the term meditation unless I use it for like the classic definition of meditation is, for insight. When you get to the point where you drop all structure and process and you're just able to rest in pure aware presence from the witnessing perspective, then you get to tap into the great insight. That's when you get these major paradigm shifts and the experience of total alive nowness.
Can you do that on a long motorcycle ride?
I think you can.
Because that's where I
think you can because it has similar quality. Long motorcycle ride, long swim.
Yep.
When the
runners get this
long runners, like when the repetitive motion doesn't need to be thought about anymore, and when you're not thinking about anything else,
you're present.
And you're just present, and you're just experiencing maybe the beauty of what's racing by you on the motorcycle. You have the same qualities of that, of that insight. And you can have great epiphanies on a motorcycle ride.
Oh, I do all the time.
I got to tell you, man, one of my favorite books, I think I read it like 7 times.
Oh, The Motorcycle Diaries.
Robert Piercing, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yeah, I had that book.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And it's all about this guy going on this long motorcycle ride with his son, and the guy has some sort of like madness, and his son is supposed to, is showing qualities of it, and how they kind of heal together.
Yeah.
And he uses the motorcycle as a metaphor for like Zen and like, just experiencing that bleeding edge of what he calls quality, which is like the air hitting the front of the motorcycle and then ripping across, and this idea that always changing moment when the air is peeling across the front of the motorcycle and him as a rider, that's where life is.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
Quality. Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
it's
like very cool.
Present moment that's always changing, but it's always
it's
got a sameness to it.
It's very hard to live there.
Really hard,
especially in our world, and also because of our wiring. and you know, most of us being in fight or flight and thinking the sky is falling and panic and
that negativity and I mean, we live in such a negative culture.
You know, toxic relationships. I mean, there's so many layers to actually execute what we're talking about and what's in that book.
Yeah.
I mean, we get it in moments. And so,
so you call that a peak state, but to be fair, I think that's the normal state.
I mean, ideally,
we are just not. We've been trained out of being normal.
Right. Yeah, we're living with plaque, and the norm actually. Yeah, you're right. I mean, when life was simple, besides where you're gonna get your meal, I think most of the day we didn't have whether it's cell phones or taxes or the pressure
and you were very close to earth. You're living in harmony with nature and animals, and everyone had this like probably rarefied sense of aliveness and also connection.
Sure.
And that's completely been stripped away from human beings in modern society.
Is that part of what you do with your program? Is kind of get them back to that?
We strive to get people back to that embodied, integrated feeling of aliveness and wholeness, and the ability to feel connected to other human beings. And we call that integration. And at the integrated level, like, you really don't fear other human beings. And you see their differences as really positive qualities as opposed to something that separates us.
There's a camaraderie.
Camaraderie. Like, we're in this together.
Right,
There's more that are the same about you and I than are different. I mean, you're born in South Korea. I was born in upstate New York. You're Asian. I'm white. Who cares? There's this sameness in spite of our differences. And that goes for the entire human race. And that's, like, if everybody could start to experience the sameness instead of the separation, then you could heal a lot. You heal the planet. You end a lot of strife.
I think one of the greatest misconceptions about self-help is that you're supposed to do it alone. And I think that we're tribal creatures, and I think what you're talking about, and the way that I see it, is like looking at one's spirit, looking at the essence of who you are.
That's what I meant by sameness. It's
so when I look at you, Mark, instead of thinking about what you've accomplished or who you are or the titles after your name or whatever, getting to the spirit of who you are. And in order to get there, you have to be non-judgmental.
Right.
You have to be open. You have to be present. And a shared experience definitely amplifies that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I went on a dirt bike trip with 12 dudes from Yosemite to Sequoia. And we rode 80 miles a day.
Wow. Fun.
Didn't talk much, just rode. But that experience was so powerful, and it connected us, around the campfire.
Mm-hmm.
And it proved to me that it wasn't about the content. It was about what was happening underneath.
Yes.
The shared experience.
I love that.
We're all together. We're just dudes on dirt. We're all seeking adventure. And that's really powerful.
Yeah, and a shared positive experience. Like, this is another, back to like therapy and coaching. If you can bring people together in a shared positive experience, like what we do through our Seal Fit events or our Unbeatable Mind events, and they may not remember the content like you said, but there's enough insight that comes through their contemplation and their embodiment of all the training and the experience and the positive energy that there can be transformation.
Well, because you're giving them an experience instead of information. Right. And that's the thing with journey coaching. It's not just classes. You're giving them an experience that they're able to do together, and that's what they're going to take away. I mean, when we look back like at high school and stuff, we don't think about what we learned in geometry class. No. We think about who we took to the prom, or that one
or did on the training field,
Yeah, right. Or for me, right. Well, I was on team. I never played, but the touchdown you scored, or the because then I think part of that is because we forget that we're emotional based creatures, not logical, and we lead our lives with logic. And so dropping into your body, and I love what you're doing, because all of this stuff, the breathing, the visualization, the meditation, the environments you create, all of those challenges, it kind of strips away logic, and it brings you back down to you dropping into yourself. Yeah,
we have a term that we call our 50-hour event Kokoro Camp. Kokoro is a Japanese term that I learned through my martial training, which means merging your heart and your mind into your actions. That's one way. And also you can interpret it as whole mind. And what I believe, I have no evidence, but I believe the power of the heart and your emotional intelligence, is dwarfs, if that's the right word, dwarfs the cognitive rational.
Absolutely. I don't think we've even tapped to what the power of it.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Like I even, there are some early research is showing like the energy, literally the electrical energy of the heart extends like 20, 30 feet out.
Sure.
Whereas the electromagnetic energy of the mind like barely goes beyond the skull.
And what's sad is we protect our hearts.
Right.
We're
close
private.
it down.
We close it because we don't want to get hurt. And so by doing so, I think we lower our potential.
I agree.
As humans, as just loving creatures, all of that. And so when we're running through the world with just our mind and logic and our hearts closed, we're not able to tap into any of these amazing experiences.
Right. And so I have a premise that the heart can be trained, right? Therapy helps it, on a one-on-one thing. And what are some of the ways that you help your clients and the people you work with?
So one of the things I did as a therapist is I went rogue, meaning I never had an office. And part of it was because I was broke and I couldn't afford one. But I said, you know what, if we're going to do life, if we're going to talk about life, let's do life while we're talking. Mm-hmm. So I started to bring people into the CrossFit box with me, clients. Yeah. And my colleagues were like, what are you doing? And I would take people on walks. We would go on hikes. So I combined talk therapy.
Talking and walking is powerful.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I podcast that way. I just talk into my phone, and it's better,
That's cool.
It's therapeutic. And so I started to give clients not only a conversation and process, but also an experience. Mm-hmm. And then also by doing so, I showed myself. So I showed up in jeans and T-shirts on my motorcycle. And what I learned was the new generation coming up, they love this because it kind of also takes away the stigma of like going into a room. And there's nothing wrong with traditional therapy. I think it's great. It's always going to, I think it's very powerful. I believe in it, but it wasn't honest to me, And so when you take them out of the room and you drop them into their body and you come in casual over clinical, it creates a different experience and it kind of produces glue. It produces trust. And now instead of coming at them, you're coming with them. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's the only way I practice. And so that was very controversial. And I think that kind of paved my way to books and
it's almost like, this idea of somatic therapy, right? It's a little bit different, but somatic therapy creates an experience.
Yes.
Either through movement or like I did just out of total curiosity because I'm fascinated with equine therapy. So
what is equine therapy?
Working with horses.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, and we spent half a day recently, my wife and I, with a somatic equine therapist with her 2 horses, and it was fascinating. Getting the horses, to connect with the horses, and horses are very sensitive to your emotional states and your mind.
Wow.
And then to work with them, so trying to get them to move with you and do some things, and it was really, really cool.
Are they at any point were you afraid? Like, were they kicking and aggressive?
Oh yeah, well, I'm 6'1" and Navy SEAL, and those horses are way more powerful than me.
Of course.
Like it's unbelievable how strong those animals are, but also just how
Wait, so why horses? What do horses have that they can be therapeutic? And like, why not elephants or dogs?
It's a really good question, and maybe an equine therapist could answer this, but there's something about the horse that is like super sensitive to human emotions that other animals. Maybe a dog has that as well, but the horse is going to communicate it in a much different way than a dog.
That's
a dog's going to run up to you.
Feel it.
They feel everything.
Wow.
And so if you come up and you're the angry therapist in your old days,
right?
The horse is going to steer clear of you.
Oh, interesting.
You've got to be really calm and clear your mind, and then the horse will just come up to you.
You know what?
You can't go up to a horse. In fact, some equine therapists, unless you're in a state they can read pretty quickly, they won't even let you go close to the horse because it is dangerous.
I wish humans were more like that.
I know, right?
Like, can you imagine how different the world would be if I came up to you and I felt your anger or whatever, and I protected myself? Or if you were loving and welcoming, then there was an instant dance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a skill.
It's a skill, unfortunately. And so it's also something we don't learn in high school or college. Or we have to go through our hero's journey or expired relationships to look inward. But I think the good news is we can adapt this skill. We can choose, if we want to, to kind of live this way, but I do think it's a practice, and I think that we could snap back like rubber bands very fast if we don't practice.
Right.
You know, so whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's why, I mean, because I'm very inspired by my martial arts, Navy SEAL, and even my yoga training, and I teach all these things, I firmly believe that every individual can train.
Yes.
To master and integrate these skills, the physical, the mental, and the emotional, and that ultimately the training to be a full, whole human being is an individual journey, but it does require us to do that hero's part where we face our fears.
Discomfort.
We face our discomfort. The obstacle is the way, like my friend Ryan Holiday would say.
I love Ryan Holiday. Yeah.
Go through that to find the other side. And but we need help a lot of times. It's very hard. Even the masters had a teacher. And, you know, I used to say every Navy SEAL starts with a single push-up or a single set of push-ups. And everyone looks at Navy SEAL and says, oh, my God, you're a superstar and you were born that way. Yeah. Wrong. You know, I've taken some of the most average people and turned them into Navy SEALs.
Do you think that's the power of
training
of community?
Well, it requires community, requires mentorship, coaching. It requires individual discipline and commitment to a path, to a developmental path. It's like the masters say, there's many paths to the mountaintop, but when you get there, you're all in the same mountaintop. Right. And so a developmental path to become a Navy SEAL is one path. A developmental path to become an Aikido master is another path. Right. A developmental path to become an angry therapist.
Man, I wish I could take all the experiences and what you've been through from the martial arts to the Navy SEAL training and all that, and just like insert it into my body, because I can't imagine.
I've got a program for you. It's called Unbeatable Mind.
I mean, because it requires a lifetime.
It does require
especially
a
stuff
lot
like
of
martial
work.
arts, where I played around with jiu-jitsu and I loved it, but I when I get into something, I want to be really good, and that takes like 10 years.
You know what's ironic about that, John, is like, and you know, of course, I've been training for so long that I've forgotten way more than I know.
Oh, right.
And
so you become a student again?
Yeah, now I'm a student again, and I feel sometimes like I'm studying Aikido right now, and it's like my mind is like scrambled. Yeah. It's like, because it's so different, and it's such a beautiful art, so I have to just completely empty my cup every day. And I'm not a white belt anymore. I'm about ready to take my green belt test, but I've got 3 black belts in other arts. Wow. But I am a complete beginner, and that's been such a great experience for me. But that's a metaphor for everything. Yes. Like the more you know, the less you know, right? Really know. Right?
I actually, because I talk about relationships and love so much, I think that's how we should approach relationships.
Completely agree.
Because what we do is we have a lot of old blueprints that we have traced from high school, college, everything from like the type of person we want to be and what that looks like, and of course commercials and Disney movies.
Yeah, and we hold on to all that structure.
Right. And so when we find someone new, instead of creating a brand new, instead of being a white belt, instead of being a student, we're now comparing and forcing and controlling, and we end up creating the same experiences for ourselves, and then we wonder why we're alone, or we wonder why.
Yeah, it's you have this puzzle that you've created for your life, and you want every relationship, to kind of to match your puzzle picture. Yep. And the problem with that is you're always in the same picture.
Yes, and so
the picture can't change.
Right.
You got to take all those pieces of your puzzle,
shake
throw
that
them out, shake it up, and have it.
So here's my new philosophy, and I know we're talking about life, but if you can create or set up a new love experience for you that is different than any other, and trust your choices, but then swim past the breakers and stay in that relationship, that container can actually change and grow you. Right. Most people don't because of fears, because of all these other things, and because it doesn't smell familiar, because someone's not attractive enough physically, or whatever it is, and so they end up just going through the same shit, and then seeing a therapist, and then the swipe culture today is just nutty, and you end up doing a lot of life by yourself, feeling lonely, and then what you do is you internalize, and then now you're finding ways to cope with this loneliness and enter drugs or shopping, gambling, or plastic surgery, whatever it is that you get obsessed with, and then you start to not believe in love anymore.
Interesting.
And I think that's very sad.
That is sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, our relationships are our best opportunity to grow.
Yes, and that's kind of the whole point. So whether we're talking about Navy SEALs or the relationship you have with your boyfriend and girlfriend, they're both equally important.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's your tribe or your partner, and my whole thing, the flag that I'm waving or running with is we need to treat relationships like it's training.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of just, because I don't feel it, I'm out, or because it's hard, or because
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, because what's happening right now is, especially I think with the millennials, because they're growing up with swipe culture,
mm-hmm.
and everyone's disposable, and you can find someone while your date is in the restroom on your phone, like that kind of stuff, right? So
this is not working out, I'll just swipe right.
There's just very low. I think there's a lot of laziness to put in the work.
The friction has been taken out, and so
it's just a lot of filters now.
Yeah, we have this saying: get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's where the lesson is. That's where the learning and the growth is.
Right.
And so today culture, anytime something gets uncomfortable, like you said, either swipe right or click to the next distraction or whatever.
People want things fast, and they believe they have a lot of choices.
That's right.
Which I think is not a bad thing.
But there's some good in that, but it could be really debilitating.
Well, when it comes to things like love, where relationships are built, you're building on sand, if that's your mindset.
Yeah. Before we kind of started this conversation, you and I had a brief moment where we talked about the power of learning coaching skills, even if you're not going to be a life coach or some sort of named business coach.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I'd like to talk about, because there's a lot of executives who are struggling with, how do I build culture? How do I connect more authentically with my team? They say culture eats strategy, and culture is all about what we're talking about here. Authentically connecting, building trust and respect, and to be courageous in your authenticity, or, like what Brene Brown would say, vulnerability with your team. How can coaching help with that? Coaching skills.
First of all, I don't like the word life coaching, because when you hear life coaching, you're automatically thinking, okay, you've mastered life and you're going to tell me how to live. It doesn't. If you're going to be a coach, you have to be very specific on what kind of coach you are. So a mindfulness coach, a meditation coach, a relationship coach, a divorce recovery coach, all that.
We now have the unbeatable mind coach.
Yes, right, exactly. That's very specific, and we know exactly what kind of coach. But when you say you're a life coach, you're not Yoda, you know, and that's why people push back against that. But I think step one in any coaching, and also even as a therapist, step one is actually you go first. Meaning,
lead by example.
If you're not on a journey, and of course it's never ending, on this kind of being a seeker and looking inward in your own life, then you're basically just a broken record. You're basically telling people what to do, not practicing it yourself. And I think most people learn from watching someone, their story, not being told what to do.
Right.
And so a lot of coaches today, I think the mistake they're making, they think coaching is about telling someone how to live their life or a lot of advice. It's not. I think it's about go live the way that you want to help people the best that you can. That being said, your life is not going to be perfect, because no one's life is perfect. And then start to share your story and guide and be a catalyst, not pointing fingers or standing behind a podium.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not, back to our idea, that's not really about the content. It's nice to have a model. We have a model.
You need a model.
We have tools and all that, but it really is about the relationship and the co-creation. Of transformation.
Right. And then I love this leading by example.
Yeah. I
love this idea that you go first. And then they'll I don't know if the word is follow, but you can then be a guide, you can be a catalyst.
Yeah.
You could impact someone's life.
Aside from that idea, that's the big idea, what are some of the core competencies that you would teach someone to be an effective coach, let's say in a corporate team environment?
I love this idea of connecting to self. So
like self-awareness, or
no, I think that as we grow up and life happens, and trauma or divorce or whatever, we slowly start to disconnect with ourselves, right? And so I think a lot of self-betterment, a lot of leadership is about first connecting to the spirit of who you are before whatever happened. So whether it's trauma, whether it's expired relationships, or maybe a lot of people, they grew up and they had to take care of their siblings, they had to grow up fast, and we put parts of ourselves into a hope chest. And I think until we open that hope chest up and connect to that part of yourself, you become less whole. So for me, it wasn't so much the butterfly pull-ups and the handstand push-ups or abs for CrossFit. I tapped into the 12-year-old spinning on my head,
Mm-hmm.
some of the happiest times of my life.
Right.
And that's like, oh, that's John Kim. And so when I felt that in my body, I walked into rooms different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I bought a motorcycle, it wasn't about trying to be cool on a Harley. I tapped into that 13-year-old riding a little Honda scooter with, for hours around the block. And that's the first time I ever felt the most free and unafraid, right? So connecting those parts of yourself and as a practice. So not just a one-time thing over a weekend, but that's how you live your life. And I think through that connection, you have this reunion with your truth, or what I call your solid self, instead of pseudo. And that's where you become potent. And that's where you actually can start to lead and go on your journey. And people, I think, notice that. Mm-hmm. I think people can sense when you are consistent and pure like butter, and this is who Mark is, or, oh, he's tap dancing, or he's being very pseudo or fake.
So instead of trying to do coaching.
Yes, that's the worst.
Be authentic.
Be authentic.
And then you could be
solid.
Then you're there to help someone, and in that process,
there's no way you can't help
someone. There's co-creation, and that's we'll call that
right.
coaching.
And I think the process of being authentic is going to send the ripple, and you're going to help people no matter what.
Yeah, and the process, and it's not a solitary thing like we talked about earlier.
No, you're pedaling a bicycle.
Right. Authenticity is only experienced in the we space.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because that's where you get the feedback and the connection.
You're saying you can't be authentic in a bathroom by yourself.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
You can.
It doesn't mean anything, though.
I mean,
right?
You can, yeah, right.
I'm really authentic right now. Look.
Also, it doesn't take courage. So,
right.
So I think with authenticity or vulnerability, like you said, it requires courage. And if you're going to do it alone, that's not courageous. So to show yourself and be your true self with the guys in the locker room or on the field or in battle or whatever it is, or in your relationship, that takes courage. But that is where the repair is. That is where, like you said, the tribe, doing life with someone. And I think that kind of comes just down to kind of fundamental human. That's how we're built. Right.
Right. That's awesome. What is besides CrossFit, what is your practice? What are your daily practices?
So I write every day.
Okay.
That's become very, and you write, so it's writing is the love-hate.
Yeah, sure it is.
So you have to put the hours in to
well
write.
Said.
A lot of people want to write and they have a lot of ideas, but they actually don't write.
It's hard work.
It's
right? You got to have a lot of discipline.
You got to put in hours.
Yeah.
So I do that every day. I make sure that, so there's 3 things that I didn't have in my life that I do today. It's meaning, joy, and engagement. So I had no meaning before other than just trying to make money. I didn't have any joy, didn't allow myself to produce joy, even in something as simple as like a hot cup of coffee or, a donut. It doesn't matter. I just didn't produce joy. And I don't think joy falls on your lap. I think you have to go seek it and search it and practice it.
Right.
Yeah. And then engagement. I didn't engage in life. I was invisible. So if we were standing here today, it was 10 years ago, I would be talking, but I wouldn't really be listening to you. I wouldn't be present. I wouldn't feel your energy. Yeah. And so if you're not engaging, you're like, Michael J. Fox disappearing because he couldn't get his parents together and Back to the Future. Like you're just like this like in limbo kind of, and that's how I spent most of my 20s and 30s. So today I make sure that that's threaded into my life. Writing gives me a sense of meaning and purpose. I'm now texting people. So I text people every morning.
Oh, no kidding.
Like out
client people or?
No, I text. I have a texting service.
Oh, cool.
To the masses. That gives me a sense of purpose and meaning.
Do you blog daily?
I blog daily when I can on Medium. Yeah. And then I produce joy. So that means whether it's a CrossFit workout or a motorcycle ride or a donut or amazing sex or whatever it is, right? Producing joy in your life to live at a higher frequency so you're not dipping into dread, worry, pessimism and what's this about and all that kind of stuff. And then also engaging. So engagement requires mindfulness. So whether you're talking to a friend or a stranger, just on the way here, I connected with someone on the train. Just a stranger. And because he said something to me, the world teaches us to kind of, I don't know him, get away. But I engaged back and we had this amazing connection and conversation. And I think engagement opens that, and now you feel like you're living in the world instead of just being a part of the world. You know what I'm saying? So I think all those three things are kind of like soil. I think it's like if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy, it's the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, to get to a place of self-actualization, or to get to a place where you're authentic and solid and all that. These are some of the things that I think you need before.
Foundational
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that. Do you have a, you know, you write every day, you CrossFit, but what about like the morning and the bookends to your day? What's your morning ritual like? And
I've been working on trying to, I know it's a big word, buzzword right now, gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be the guy that used to just check off a list, but
yeah,
not
grateful
really.
For this.
Yeah. Which does nothing, right?
Doesn't, no.
And
To
you're just
really contemplate on.
Yeah, so
things,
I try to be still, and I try to feel it in my body. Like, what am I grateful for today? You know, we also live in cognitive distortions a lot.
Yeah.
So being aware of my distorted thinking, and trying to see my thoughts through a snow globe. So noticing, but not allowing my thoughts to take me hostage, which I used to do, and which ruined my life. And that keeps you in a very low frequency, because our thoughts they're all coming from dread, worry. It's either like worried about the future or dwelling on the past. And so we were living in time machines, which I used to do. And so you can't be present, you can't engage. And so you're in your head the whole time. And to me, that's sad.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to live like that anymore. Because
I love the snow globe metaphor. That's a great one, especially as a visualization, to use that as a like a witnessing practice. That's cool.
The what?
The snow globe.
Yeah. I'm a visual person. That's
yeah, me
like,
too.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. Imagery is, you know, when you combine imagery and emotion, you know, that's like the holy grail.
we're usually in the snow globe, and the shit's falling, the sky's falling, and someone is God or universe is turning that snow globe upside down,
shaking you all over the place.
Right. We don't realize we're actually on the outside, and we can
looking
watch
through
our thoughts
it,
and watch the storm.
You can be on either side. It just
sure.
where you choose to
be.
You choose to live and experience your mind.
Yeah. And also, you know, so I'm going to be a father in a
congratulations.
Thank you. In about 10 weeks. So a lot is happening as a 46-year-old, where my priorities lay. So shuffling, because I think sometimes we hold on to what we think is important, and they're old.
Yeah.
And we don't realize
when you're a father, your morning ritual is going to change.
Oh yeah, I won't have a morning ritual. It's going to be shit on my face. And you know, that's part of, again, leading to discomfort.
Right? Embrace the discomfort and learn.
Running either away from yourself or toward you.
I have a son. He's 20 now. But I remember, you know, when he was a baby, like that, it was a great opportunity to practice presence.
Oh, yeah.
You just breathe with that little guy, and you're holding him or feeding him, and you're like, you could feel this like agitation, like I want to get up and do something, or I've got this project to finish, or no.
You can't, because
he'll feel that agitation. So
as an infant, what was the most difficult part about being a father?
You know, the early years were really good for us. And it's all Devin. My son's name is Devin. Is awesome. But learning, surrendering to the fact that he's just such a unique human being, and he's not going to be like me.
Oh, right.
So to let go of any need that he has to be like me, or do things based upon what society thinks is right, or school, or anything like that. You know, I got him into Boy Scouts. I took him to a Boy Scout like a camping weekend. He begged me to take him home and not to leave him there.
Right.
And of course the scout leader's like, just leave him here, Mark. He'll cry and everything, and then tomorrow will be fine. Yeah. To this day, he's like, Dad, you know what? Thank you so much for not ditching me there at the Boy Scout, camping weekend. Yeah. He goes, that built so much trust. And that was like counterculture, right? It's like, because all the other dads would have just ditched their kids, but it just didn't feel
like to harden up.
It just didn't feel right to me, because he was like begging me to take him home.
Oh man!
You know, I did karate with him, Kempo karate, all the way up until we're testing for our brown belt. But the instructor didn't require Devin to spar, to clash. We could do all the the katas and do all the self-defense techniques, and I couldn't get him to spar either. So when we went for the test on test day, I couldn't get him out of the car. And, I'm thinking back to like, what would my mom or dad have done? Or Dad, he probably would have dragged me out of the car by my ear, you know what I mean? Or by hair, so get in there. And he's like, Dad, I just don't want to fight another human being.
Wow.
I was like, okay, let's go home. And we never finished karate, and I'm a Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah,
I've got 3 black belts, and I'm thinking, holy cow, this is a different kind of boy.
I love that story, and you know what's telling is if he said that, it means he felt safe to say that. So if you were the kind of dad that didn't allow him to say things like that, or if he got punched in the face, right, he wouldn't have said that. So
he would have been shut down.
He would have been shut down. So that tells me that because you stayed at the Boy Scout camp, or you did these things, or you allowed him to be him and not put your own definitions on him, he felt safe enough to say, hey, Dad, I don't want to fight anymore. And that's, I think, where the nectar of the father-son relationship is, you know?
And it's a day-by-day thing, and we have such a great relationship now.
Yeah.
And he still frustrates me because, I wish he was in CrossFit, and I wish he was doing this and that for his own health, but he's 20, and he's finding his own way.
Yeah. Wow, what a great example, because I would have judged you and thought that, okay, you have this whole Navy SEAL, leadership stuff, and that you would probably clone your son to be the same way, or
a lot of my peers, will put that out there as like the ideal, and their kids are perfect little clones of them, and they will see some kind of breakdown. I hope not, but you know what I mean?
But as a man, I hear that story, and I actually have more respect for you.
Yeah.
Because that's harder for you to do, probably.
It's hard. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yes.
And I feel like you're giving me therapy right now.
I know, but for me, as being a new dad, I'm going to put that in my back pocket. And when I want to control or put my shoulds on my child, I'm going to be like, hey, remember when you were talking to Mark? And and he,
take a breath.
And
just allow the kids to
be their own
person and to fall down. And you're there to provide the boundaries so they don't veer off too far.
Yeah. But also, I think that's a model and metaphor for not just with father-son, but with anyone.
Yeah.
To be their own person.
Too often we're projecting or transferring.
Always.
And then, we're like, why is this person? And you're like, turn around, look in the mirror. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're that way because you're basically presenting them that way to your own mind.
I talk about this idea of grabbing instead of holding.
Oh, I like that.
In relationships, many people grab. So that's what grabbing looks like. And when you feed a pigeon, you have to put your palm up and allow the pigeon to come to you. If you chase a pigeon to eat, it's never gonna.
Right.
And I think people do that in relationships. They're chasing, saying this is good for you, this is what you need to do, and you need to lose weight or do whatever.
As opposed to this having it be a mutual attraction. Just open the hand and
you be you. And
if she comes and feeds.
Right. No, absolutely. But there's more trust that way. And then you also have two people doing life, sharing their life, but being their own person instead of enmeshment, codependency, and all this other stuff that creates that feels good but creates unhealthy relationships.
Yeah, that short-term feel good, but some ramifications.
And that dopamine we get from young love, and we keep chasing it as an adult. I've done that, and I still struggle with it. But getting to a place where you're setting up yourself for a new experience where you can be yourself and allow the other person to be his or herself is what's going to create a new tracks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This book, I used to be a miserable fuck. Everyman's Guide to a Meaningful Life. Do you have like a one or two kind of real cool insights to share around the book?
It's basically 66 tips pulled from my own story as I made my long journey from boy to man. It's not me telling someone how to be a man or putting definitions. I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think it's just me encouraging men to come up with their own definitions. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you mentioned that this is now available in airport bookstores.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
You know what's interesting?
That's a big milestone. I've always wondered how do I get my book into an airport?
So I never really considered myself an author. And even to this day, I don't feel like a writer. I feel like I got lucky. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't when I got my book agent. It wasn't when I got published. It was seeing it at the airport. Like I needed to have that experience where I was at an airport. There's my book and I touched it where it's like, oh, okay, I feel like a writer now.
That's cool.
So that's when something clicked. So now I can say that I'm an author without stuttering or feeling insecure. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, John, I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
This was a really nice conversation.
Absolutely.
And good luck with the book and good luck with everything you're doing. So
thank you so much.
People can find you at theangrytherapist.com.
Yep, you can find me there. And if you want my daily text, just go to my website and I'll be in your phone.
That's cool. So you send out like motivational stuff? Or?
It's all programmed. So it's Mondays a challenge, Tuesdays some kind of motivation, Wednesdays a mindset or something. But at the end of the week, I send a link to a Google Doc that's private. So it goes deeper. It goes like 5 pages deeper into that topic.
Oh, cool.
So it's like mental programming, but emotional.
That's cool service.
Yeah, just being creative with technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have Facebook or Instagram handle?
Yeah, Instagram. Everything's just The Angry Therapist.
Angry Therapist.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, buddy.
Thank you for having me on the show. Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Good.
All right, folks. John Kim. Check him out at theangrytherapist.com or on social media. And we'll read his book. I can't wait to read this. He just gave me a copy. I used to be a miserable fuck. I just love that. Anyways, all right, everybody, that's it. So thanks again for your support of Unbeatable Mind and the Unbeatable Mind podcast. Really appreciate you. Stay focused. Do the emotional work. Don't be afraid of therapy. Just look at it as another form of coaching. And I'll see you next time on the Unbeatable Mind podcast. Hoo-yah. Divine out. Hey, this is Mark Divine. Thanks very much for watching the Unbeatable Mind podcast on YouTube. You can also find the podcast at iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, and unbeatablemind.com/podcast. Be sure to check out the new episode released every week. Hoo-yah.